Welcome back to Soulful Conversations with Ash Grunwald. This is my very first monologue for Lockdown Edition number 1. This very special episode of Soulful Conversations is proudly sponsored by Otis Eyewear, makers of radical sunglasses that have glass lenses instead of plastic, which is in most sunglasses. So thank you very much to the legends at Otis. And if you do want to be sporting a pair of Otis Sunnies, go to the website and put in the promo code in capitals Ash and Otis for a 25% discount. That is au.otiseyewear.com. Welcome to Soulful Conversations with Ash Grunwald. In this podcast, we interview inspiring and amazing people, musicians, surfers, and experts in mindset, creativity, health, well-being, and making the world a better place. I'm tired of beating around the bush. I want to go deep and have a soulful conversation.
This podcast is brought to you by Earth Bottles. At Earth Bottles, we are on a mission to end single-use plastics, offering a full range of beautiful double-insulated bottles, reusable coffee cups, food and tea canisters, stainless steel straws, bags, and lots of plastic-free eco-goodies. Earth Bottles proudly supports the Breast Cancer Network of Australia, Beyond Blue, Hope for Health, Clean Coast Collective, 15 Trees, Bali Baby House, and the UN Refugee Agency. So head over to www.earthbottles.com.au for a 10% discount using the promo code ASHLOVESME. Together, we can make a change and break up with single-use plastics.
Welcome back to Soulful Conversations, people. This is Lockdown Edition, the first one. It's taken me this long to sort of just adjust to the new circumstances. I've been doing a lot of online gigs and online mentoring. So if there's anybody out there in podcast land who thinks that they would enjoy a one-on-one mentoring session with me, just jump on my website at ashgrunwald.com and I will hook you up. That's been pretty fun, actually. I've also been doing guitar lessons and vocal lessons. But yeah, I had to hit the ground running because I was touring in Spain and this corona craziness just went off. And I believe Spain is one of the most affected countries now. So we were touring and we were one of the last bands to be touring in Spain, I think. I was supposed to go on to tour France and then finish off in Holland, but I had to cut that short and jet back to Oz. And then, of course, like every other musician in the world, it's slowly unfolded for me that the situation was a lot more serious than I thought, and it became illegal for me to work due to the lockdown. None of what I'm saying is surprising to you, I'm sure. But yeah, so that's been my sitch. So I had to sort of hit the ground running and just quickly invent a new business model. It's just been something that you just need to get used to and deal with, because the situation is not going to jump up and turn around and change just because we don't like it. And, you know, if you follow my socials, I've been saying a few things on there, and I think people have been saying to me that they found it to be quite helpful. So I thought my Soulful Conversations listeners would probably appreciate it even more, because you guys are no stranger to my views on the importance of mindset. And I guess this period now, where what's happening in our external circumstances is completely out of our control and completely uncertain, it's now is the time to really put the mindset stuff that you've heard on Soulful Conversations before and on other podcasts. It's time to put that stuff into practice now. You know, I've always been an advocate, as you guys know, of making your mindset your hobby and your healthy obsession. And the reason for that has always been that that is the most important thing, really. Your mindset, how you view the things that happen in your world, because that's what mediates all experiences is your mindset. What you think about what happens is actually what controls your experience. Not what happens, but what you think about, and what you think and feel about what happens is the most important thing. And if you want evidence of that, just look around at your friends and family and everybody you know and look at the different responses to the coronavirus and the lockdown. You'll see that it's possible for two different individuals with different mindsets to approach the same situation in very different ways. And I know all of our circumstances do vary, and, some people aren't very affected, some people are fucked. All we have is our mindset. And one thing I said on socials is that at the moment we have a situation where we are going to have to make a lot of decisions in our personal life. You have to weigh up a lot of things. Every day it seems like something changes and you have to weigh up. Should we do this, or, what should we do that, or, what should we be planning for? And it's very necessary to think on that level, on that planning level. I think Eckhart Tolle is the king of this, being in the now. I think he's a good guy to get into. If you find that you're going over and over the same things and starting to obsess and freak out, because you need to interrupt your mental stream. You might think that because the situation might be dire, or there's a really big decision to be made, the temptation is to think, well, I need to think about it constantly. You might tend to just let yourself think about it constantly. And the reason for that is probably that you think that you're actually achieving something by doing that. But really, you're not. You're not changing the circumstance at all. No one keeps a tally of how many times that you've run that over and over in your mind, and it absolutely changes nothing. It just creates more suffering than ever. So it's really important at times like this that you do think these things through. I suggest putting pen to paper, or if you're a person who types things out, get it out, put it out in another format, type it into a document, your decisions, or write it down on pen and paper, but get it out, and then try and have big long spaces in your day when you don't think about the decisions that you have to make, and really try and be strict with yourself in that way, because it's really important to live life in the now, as Eckhart would say. Otherwise, you will drive yourself crazy at a time like this. I feel like a time like this will exacerbate any mental weaknesses that you have. And the main one for us all is that constant mental stream. So I just thought I'd give you that reminder, and I'm giving myself the reminder while I'm telling you that, because I think that's really important. And, you've got your methods. You know how to interrupt that mental stream. The best thing of all that you can do, and you know that this is something that I've talked about a lot, and something that I definitely learnt a lot about in doing the book, is if you're focusing on something, and if something is important to you and a passion for you, it really does help to give you something to focus your energies and your attention on that isn't anything to do with coronavirus or lockdown. The obvious things for me to say is if you're a musician, it's easy, or if you're a surfer, it's easy. Well, if you can get to the ocean, but focus on your passions. And if it suits you to do this and it's not too much of a stress, I think it's a good idea to actually try and improve. Practice a lot. And, that same goes for your physical practices. Work out at home more, and, eat healthy. And I think actually the more disciplined you can be, self-disciplined you can be, and day by day have that joy of seeing results in what you do, the better, because it will give you something consistent that you're working away at, and it really does bring a lot of joy into your life to be improving at something that is really only maybe for you, but it's something that you do have control of in your life. And as we know, in a lockdown situation, there's a lot of things that are out of our control. I think it's really important at times like now to be working on the things that are in your control. Most of your focus should go to the things that are in your control. Obviously, every now and again, we have to check in with the situation, and that's the things that are out of our control. And I'm not advocating, knowing nothing about what's going on. Although I've I found myself drifting away. It was my only time in this decade of watching the news was when there was, new information about corona. And I actually found myself for the first time ever starting to get sucked into the extra little bits of like I'd put it on to see an announcement about whether they're going to pay JobKeeper, something very practical, or when we need to apply or something like that. And then, they've got the next story, which is, maybe something true, but it's something that's to do with people being affected on the other side of the world or in another part of the globe. And after a while, I realized, it's making some emotions go off in me. There's nothing I can actually do to help those people. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm going to file that under gossip about corona. It's an important thing for the people that it's affecting, but it's not important for me to know about that and to know every detail of every bit of misery that every person is going through. There's a lot of fear out there, and fear is not really an emotion that is very constructive. It's certainly not very constructive for your immunity. And I'm sure a lot of you would have seen something about this, but I'm just going to cover it very briefly. Fight or flight. When you're in fear, when you're freaking out, when you're stressing, your body is an ancient organism. And when we get into fight or flight, it's so we can run away from that lion or that dinosaur. And it was a very useful thing for us when we lived in a anatomically modern human body thousands and thousands of years ago, when life was probably a lot simpler, but pretty critical when it came to be chased down by a predator. So when that happens, when you feel that fear and you're in fight or flight, all of your reserves are taken away from your immunity, because that's the least of the problems of your body. You might just be eaten by a lion in the next 2 seconds. So all of your resources put into your adrenals, and your body's ready to bust out, do what it needs to do. But in our modern times, that can just be triggered by just stressing about the situation, and your immunity will suffer from that. So it's worth keeping in mind to not feed that beast of fear that can grow inside you. And I think if you're a fan of Soulful Conversations, you're probably everything I've said so far you're onto. But then again, I'm actually getting some therapeutic value myself from just hearing my own words as I'm saying them. So I think that those things are important. I just think there's nothing more important at a time like this than your mindset. And you need to be strong for the people around you. And that's another way you can approach this. You need a few different attacks at this problem. There's a few things in your tool belt, your mental tool belt, that you can use to improve your mindset and improve your outlook. And another one of those is that you need to be strong for the people around you and set an example. Think about their emotions going through this. And if that's your focus, you will benefit immensely from that. And you will feel a lot less anxiety yourself when it is your focus to help those people around you to get through it. So just another little sneaky hack that I was thinking of there. Feel free to use that. So don't lose focus, people. It's a very uncertain time, and I'm not offering you certainty. I think there is a tendency to get on YouTube or listen to podcasts or, get on the TV and look for certainty. But I think anyone who's offering absolute certainty, I think you should be wary of them. I'm not offering certainty, that's for sure, because we really don't know. But what I'm offering is, or what I'm suggesting is that basically, let's put it this way. I suggest you resist the urge to look for certainty in the outer world. because you're not going to find it. We don't know what's going to happen over the next 6, 12, 18 months. I think your mental energy is better put into, like I said, your mindset, the things that you can control, rather than being put into hoping for something to be different. I think you should hope for yourself to be able to adapt to whatever comes your way. And you've got a much better chance of dealing with this situation really well if that's your perspective. Another one you could maybe use, another thing in that toolbox, is to say, my objective mentally is to leave this lockdown situation better than when I went into it. More able, better mentally, better spiritually, better physically. Through your daily practices, I think that's the way to do it. Just doubling down on those daily practices, the things that you already know are the right things. If you put pen to paper after this podcast, you would probably write 5 or 6 things that you already know. They're the things that really benefit you, and they're the things that you've always wanted to get into, but you haven't really had time. You've just been too busy chasing your tail. Well, now's the time. You really do have the time. So it could be as simple as you felt like your body was getting out of shape. Well, get shredded. It's possible to do. Any reasonable goal is for yourself that you set for yourself is possible to achieve by practicing daily. And now we've got the opportunity to do that. So what I would suggest is writing yourself out a little routine every day and seeing if you can tick those things off. I mean, that's what I've been doing for the last couple of years. When I started to really get into really good habits was when I was writing the book, Surf by Day, Jam by Night, that I mentioned just before, that you guys probably know all about. But during that time, I was writing out myself a little routine every day. I found that I benefited on all levels that I wanted to improve in, which for me, it was my music, my guitar playing. I was working really hard at doing that. And that was a difficult thing to improve at while I was writing a book. And I was also working on getting fitter. And then I was working on my mindset, basically. And through writing it down in an exercise book every day and just ticking the things off that I saw as necessary, I felt tremendous benefit. And I'll be really honest with you, when this corona stuff first hit, and I'd gone from being in good habits, just touring every single day. I was gigging every night of the week. In Spain, I even did 2 gigs on a Sunday, every night of the week, and 2 gigs on a Sunday. Even then, I was in good habits. But when I got home and all this shit went down and I was with my family, I sort of fell out of the routines that I was in. And for the first time in years, I found myself laying in bed with the kids and Danny and watching Netflix and stuff like that. But for a brief time, or for that time, I sort of granted myself that time to just assimilate. But now I'm starting to feel that fire kindle and realize that it really is. It's time to get in there. It's time to really give to my passions if I want to drive my way out of this. Like I said, I can't change anything in the external. It's got nothing to do with me. I'm just another person of the 7 billion odd that are affected by this. But there's a lot I can do on my personal level. So that's what I'm sort of getting at. We should be mentally fortifying ourselves by doubling down on those practices that we know are good. I'm not even going to bother telling you what I think. Maybe I will at the end say a few ideas of what you could work on if you're looking for ideas. But I do think it's worth working on that stuff. And there's no need. None of what I've suggested here is about bullshitting yourself about the situation. But we need to really look for those silver linings, as you find yourself so many times falling into that darkness of despair when you focus too much on the what ifs. So I do think it's really important to look for the silver linings, the opportunities that this little negative scenario is bringing to the situation, and just think, that's the other thing. this is a time to be an optimist. There's no more. I'm not talking about bullshitting yourself. I'm talking about finding the real silver linings, because there are many, and you need to be able to see that. And, read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning when he was in Auschwitz, and he was a psychologist in a concentration camp with death and despair all around him, starvation, and he survived. And I just definitely suggest reading that book. It's an amazing book, and it was really people who never lost that hope of survival. It was basically mindset that got the very few survivors through that. And I'm not drawing a parallel in any way, but I mean, I think you'd find that to be quite inspirational. And I just said I wasn't going to give you any recommendations, but there's one. Read that book. It's just really time to work on our mental skills, our flexibility, and draw pride from our adaptability, our mental adaptability, because we're going to need it, peeps. So that's my little message to my podcast listeners. I'm going to be doing a lot more podcasting now and get a few of the lockdown editions happening. And I love you all, people. Good luck. And if anybody wants any mindset coaching or guitar lessons or a private gig or singing lessons or anything like that, jump on my website at ashgrunwald.com and book a time. And they go into my calendar and they come out as a little Zoom thing. So until next time, catch you later.